Hey everybody, how's it going? Hopefully y'all are having a great day today. In today's video, I wanted to discuss a lesson that I personally wish I had learned a little bit earlier on in my life. Once I did learn this lesson, I found that I was making a lot of good progress within my career, but also my personal relationships as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. So first and foremost, I think we've all heard some variant of the saying that time is money and money is time. Well, today's lesson actually kind of goes a little bit deeper into that and kind of applies it to day-to-day situations. So let's first define some things here. For this, the way I'm conceptualizing time is the resource that everybody covets, right? Everybody is trying to pay you some way or another, right? Whether it's with money or whether it's with their own time. But people are always trying to acquire your time, right? If you apply this, for this lesson, we're not really only talking about work, we're also talking about personal life as well, right? So your employer looks at you, they assess your skill sets and place a value on what your time is worth, right? And then the employer pays you money, in which you take that money and then you go and pay for an item so that you don't have to make it yourself. You have bought somebody else's time to make that item, or maybe you spend that money to enjoy your own time, right? Whatever the case may be, your employer values your time and pays you accordingly. Your relationships within your own personal life, right? Be it a significant other, friends, family, children, they all want your time, right? But how do they pay for it? How do they acquire your time? Well, one, we tend to just give our time out of obligation to the person, right? But if you think about this in terms of a relationship, right? You give your significant other time in exchange for their time. Or in, some cases where somebody is a little bit more of a gold digger, they may give time for money, right? But at any rate, when you are in a relationship, you are essentially giving your time for the other person's time in return, right? You may, for example, take time and listen to your significant other, let them talk about their day, and in return, they may spend time and talk about your day, or they may spend their time in a way that means more to you, right? Maybe depending on your love language, you're a physical touch person, so you may listen to their day while they give you a massage, right? So there's some exchange of time for time in that relationship, right? When you're thinking about your kids, obviously they need to grow up, they need to have some kind of role model, so they require your time in education for them, right? And parents and children are kind of a weird dynamic where the parent really doesn't expect very much from the kid, but the kid really expects everything from the parent. So you're kind of doing it out of a lot more obligation in that scenario. But to demonstrate the point, everyone is coveting your time, right? And different people are willing to pay different things in different amounts for that time, right? My significant other may pay me differently for that hour than, let's say, my parents would pay me for my hour with them, right? They're different scenarios. They're also different people who are trying to acquire my time, right? So I can't use one valuation of my time for my parents as I do for my significant other, right? My significant other, my value add to them is my ability to listen, my ability to care for them, my ability to show love, my ability to enjoy their company, my ability to help them towards their common goals, whatever it is, right? That's my value add to them. And what makes me more or less valuable as a spouse is how well I can help them achieve those certain things, right? If they deem their time to be worthwhile and I'm a terrible listener, or I don't really help them achieve their goals, or any of the variables that I mentioned, well, they're not going to stick around very long, right? They may stick around for a little bit, but ultimately you're going to have this social equity imbalance build up where the significant other is not getting what they need. They've tolerated an unequal exchange for far too long, and now they harbor resentment, right? So you want to increase your values in those areas, right? So how can you do that? Well, if your significant other likes you listening, maybe you read a book or watch some YouTube videos on how to be a more effective listener, right? You'll find that when you do that, when you become a better listener, your value in that person's eyes will rocket up in value, right? You are going to be a more valuable partner to that significant other because you're able to listen to them so well, and that's something that they value a lot, right? If that person values physical touch and you take a course on massages or you take a course on whatever, right? You're going to increase your value to them. And in exchange, they're hopefully, they're going to want to increase their value to you so as to kind of equal out the playing field, right? No one wants to feel like they're getting something as a steal, right? So they're going to want to reciprocate that value add, right? So you exchange that over to your parents. Well, what value add could I bring my parents, right? Definitely, could have some carryover, right? Maybe my parents do need a good listener, but maybe my parents just want some quality time and, a person that is there, who is attentive, who is like present, not on their phone, not doing extra whatever. That time is going to be a lot more valuable. I mean, imagine yourself as a parent, right? You have two kids. One comes over and is always on their phone and not really paying attention. You try to engage them in a conversation one-on-one, and they just don't seem there. Well, you're not going to have a great time, right? As opposed to the child who comes over, they tell you all about their day. They, tell you all about these things that, have happened in their life. And it's just wonderful stories. And you as a parent can consume that and think, wow, I put all of my energy into this kid and look how valuable of a life they're living now. You're going to love that time as a parent, right? So as a child, if you want to increase your value to your parents, then, maybe you become a good historian of your life events. Maybe you get a little bit better at storytelling, whatever the case may be, right? These are ways that you can build your value to your parents. Now, an important thing to remember is do not confuse your value in one area for your value in another area, right? So let's put it back to the significant other example. I'm a fantastic listener to my significant other, so much so that I think, wow, my time is really worth a lot of money. I mean, look how much they're willing to do. They're willing to change aspects of themselves just to reciprocate, right? That's fantastic. And then you go to your 9-to-5 and you work a job that doesn't pay you what you think you're worth. You want to build a career out of it, but for some reason, everybody else is getting promoted around you before you, and they came after you. So what gives? Well, you need to be able to, as a human in today's society, develop the skill set to assess what does the other purchaser of my time value and how do I increase that if I want to increase it, right? So, very simple example here. Let's say you work in the healthcare field and you're a registered nurse, right? And you want to stay in healthcare, but you want to make more money. Well, nurses are, more or less capped at a certain amount of income, right? Well, how do you stay in the healthcare field but get paid more money? Well, you go out and get more certifications. You increase your knowledge, you increase your capabilities to provide value within the healthcare setting. When you do that, your pay is going to increase, right? A physician associate is not going to be paid the same amount as a registered nurse, right? The physician associate who went through more schooling, who went through more education is going to be paid more, right? Also, to further extend that, a doctor will be paid more than a PA, right? They had longer education. Although I don't know how much it matters, they went through more schooling cost-wise. They also assume more liability, so with more risk must come more reward. So that's a way to stay within the field, get more certifications to increase your value, to increase the value of your time in that field and get more money, right? So now let's take it to a little bit more of a subjective area, right? I work in the field of personal finance. In particular, I work for a family office. Now, in the family office setting, there's multiple roles. I'm in the role of a client service, right? So my whole job is to provide the best experience for our clients. Whether that's they have a quick question, they want to reach out, or they have a really in-depth request and they need my help, they don't know where to start. It is my job to make sure that their experience is the best possible experience they could ever have anywhere, right? That's my job. I'm a servant. And you have to be able to embrace that. And you might say, okay, well, how do I develop the skill sets to make my time more valuable in that setting, right? Well, going the extra mile, learning how to be a good communicator, learning how to tell good stories, learning how to address someone in an email, picking up all of these small different things in aggregate makes a huge difference over the long run, right? When other humans are assessing whether or not your time is worth it, that is a beautiful scenario, because humans by themselves are very flawed at assessing value, right? We have our biases, we have these innate things that come with being human that make it hard for us to accurately determine what somebody's time is worth. You can take advantage of this by altering your first impression, right? If you know somebody is, trying to assess your value from a time perspective, doing something as simple as increasing your vocabulary, right, could be huge, right? It sets the initial first impression that you're very well spoken. You seem very in control of the language. You can express yourself. And these are all valuable things when it comes to everything, work, relationships, what have you, right? So something as small and as simple as increasing your vocabulary and practicing public presentation can be a huge value add across multiple areas and make your time worth more to pretty much any purveyor of your time, right? So now you start to see this trend where life is this never-ending cycle of creating a new relationship, assessing what that relationship needs as far as a resource from you, be it time or money, and then understanding how the other party is assessing the value of that thing, right? So I meet a new person, right? Let's say I meet a new significant other, and in that relationship, I determine that my time is mostly the need, and maybe they require some of my money as well, right? What do I think they value the most when it comes to time? This is often found by love languages. That's, I think, a very predominant way of assessing that nowadays, but assessing what the love languages are, assessing bad experiences that they've had in the past, assessing good experiences that they've had in the past, and being able to replicate the good and completely forego the bad. You'll find that the better you get at assessing these things, you can pinpoint your time in learning and becoming better for that person, for that job, for that relationship, right? You can develop your skills in having a certain love language be portrayed, right? You can learn if, let's say, you're a league player and you bang your desk every time you die in league, but it jolts the other person and they don't like that. Spending time to control your anger, spending time to control your emotions, reading a book on stoicism, taking therapy, all of these small things that can help you regulate your own emotions will then add value to that relationship, right? Your time and you as a person become more valuable to that person, right? So anyways, I hope this is helpful. This is kind of an abstract thought of how to increase your value to the other person, and where you can kind of make targeted efforts to improving yourself, right? One last example that I'll part with is oftentimes in relationships, you'll find that some things maybe just aren't the same as they used to be, right? This person used to give me a lot more attention, and now all of a sudden they're not really giving me much, right? When they used to seem close, now they seem very distant, right? This is often because there is a imbalance in what they value and what you are putting out as far as your time, right? So, to take a very shallow, very apparent example, let's take weight, right? Let's say you're in a relationship and the other person really valued the time that they spent with you at the gym, right? They really enjoyed getting in shape together. It's something that registers very highly for them. They also love the physical appearance of another human, right? And let's say over time, you've kind of stopped going to the gym with them. They're still going, you're not. You've kind of lost your shape a little bit. You're starting to gain a little bit of weight. That may cause a bit of a differential, right? Because this person really enjoyed that aspect of their relationship with you, and you've kind of started to stop doing that, right? And they're not going to say anything, right? Or at least Maybe they wouldn't, but they should, right? But it is up to you to assess, wow, we used to really bond over going to the gym. We used to really bond over doing these activities, and I have since stopped doing those activities. And maybe that's the cause of the lack of time spent, right? I'm going to get back in there. I'm going to start working out more. I'm going to lose that weight that I wanted to. And I'm going to make my time more valuable so that this person is not going to see this inequality, but rather they're going to see like, oh, wow, this person is like kind of getting back into the gym now. They're starting to do the thing like that I really liked about them. You know, you're starting to increase your value to that person. And in return, you're going to notice that they're going to start wanting to reciprocate a little bit more. They're going to start, giving you more of their time, right? And that is, I think, just as much your position to recognize that if you are the person that has kind of slowly let up on the value add, right? Everything in life is always like you're constantly trying to improve, right? Well, if you kind of stagnate and you kind of stop trying to improve yourself, you need to be able to realize that. You need to be able to realize what value add are you giving to the other person, and try your best to target those categories and improve yourself in that category, right? Now, if the role is reversed, right? You are the in shape person and your partner is starting to let themselves go, right? Again, we're just going to be writing this example because it's very easy. You can apply this to really whatever scenario you can think about in your relationship, right? But let's say the other person is starting to let themselves go a little bit, right? And that really matters to you, right? That's a huge thing in your book. It is just as much your job to tell them as it is for them to try to acknowledge that, right? I would argue it's a little bit easier for you to see that. So, if you're the party in that position, maybe you have the like half step initiative to be the initiator in that conversation, right? But it's like getting a bad haircut. If you get a bad haircut and you look the hairstylist dead in the eye and you say, yeah, looks good, and you pay him and you give him a tip, they're not going to know anything different. They're going to cut your hair the exact same way, and you're going to sit there pissed off every single time you get your haircut, right? And you have one of two choices. You can either tell them it's a bad haircut and ask them to change certain aspects of the haircut, or you leave and go to a different barber, in which case they're going to be like, well, I thought I was doing a good job cutting their hair, but I guess I wasn't, So in the same way, if your partner's weight is starting to become an issue and that's something you valued in them, bring it up to them, talk to them about it, but don't be a jerk about it, right? You want to bring it up as empathetically as you possibly can, right? Make it a bonding experience. I would really love to start going back to the gym again, however you want to phrase that, right? So both parties are, responsible for acknowledging when this inequality is starting to happen, right? And needs to be able to communicate about it. It's a very awkward conversation, but ultimately it's going to help establish both parties' responsibility to continually improve themselves for the other person, right? Think about this in a job setting, right? If you are so on top of it, you're always on time, you're always getting things done, and your employer's really loving it, you're like, yeah, that's what we hired him for, right? And now you start coming to work a little bit later, right? Now it's 8:05 instead of 8 o'clock. Now it's 8:10. Now those things are kind of not getting done same day, but next day, right? The employer is kind of looking like, wow, where did the other person go? We're paying this person the same amount of money as we were paying that other person, and yet less work's getting done. The person's not on time, and this isn't seeming worth it anymore. And your employer hopefully should tell you, hey, you're not performing the same as you used to. What's up? Everything okay? Or, hey, look, you really got to improve things, or, we're going to have to find a different candidate, right? And it's up to you if you want to keep the job, just as much as it's up to you if you want to keep your relationship with your significant other or keep your relationship with whomever, right? It's your job to raise the bar back up. It's your job to increase the value add, right? Some people in the job may say like, oh, well, I'm getting paid to do less work, so I'm going to do less work. And it's like, okay, well then you need to be able to sell your time as being a little bit more valuable. So there's a lot of interplay with valuation of time, acknowledging your own value and assessing what other people think of your value, right? So hopefully this is helpful. There's really a lot to talk about here. I really am thinking about making a second video on this, but let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I do reply to every single comment, but Hope you enjoyed the video. And without anything else to say, we all have a wonderful day.